Good afternoon and welcome to Salam Media. We're broadcasting live from Chile, Johannesburg. I'm your host, Salalo Makwidir, and today we're going to be having a crucial discussion that we have lined up for you about the ongoing violence and displacement crisis in Mozambique. Joining us is Professor Adriano Nuvunga, the director of the Center for Democracy and Development, who's going to be shedding light on the situation and the way forward. So stay tuned for this very, very interesting conversation. Professor Adriano Nuvunga is joining us via StreamYard. He's in Maputo currently. Prof, welcome to Salam Media. Thank you so much for joining us, and really, really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I think first and foremost, let's have some background on the current situation in Cabo Delgado right now. I think the last time you and I spoke, the situation was still very, very much critical, with the ongoing insurgency. What's the latest right now? Is the insurgency being kept under control? Is the government of Mozambique coming to the party? What's the latest? What's the latest that you can give us coming out of Cabo Delgado?
Unfortunately, the developments are not encouraging. It has been 6 years now that this violence, we call it insurgency, is creating Mozambique's biggest humanitarian crisis since the end of the civil war. And it is sitting in between the people of Mozambique and the world-class gas reserves that we have in the in northern Cabo Delgado. So it is creating a lot of havoc, not only in that region, but also throughout the country, and risking to expand to other parts. Now, since last time that we spoke, unfortunately, we have seen extremists gaining momentum. They have been expanding towards the south of the province, which is the area that since 2 years it has been stabilized by SAMIM, which is the SADC military deployment to support Mozambique in its fight against violent extremism in northern Mozambique. And we have seen a lot of momentum regrouping of the violent extremists undertaking attacks that show that they have regained capacity. And they have been taking and abducting humanitarian workers, and it appears that they are demanding up to $1 million ransom to release some of those people. So this is more the situation in the ground, and unfortunately, government has not, despite all the efforts and the support that it has been having either from the European Union and other bilateral partners, it has not been improving its security sector governance on time to contain the situation using its internal capacity.
And I think, one of the most concerning, key consequences of this insurgency and this instability in the area is, obviously the internally displaced people. I think the number that I have, in front of me is that there's more than 700,000 people who are internally displaced. I know the number can be more than that, but these are the ones that are documented. If you can give us, a bit of insight on that situation, the normal people, the men and women in Cabo Delgado who are being affected by this and who have to find themselves, being internally displaced, having to go to the surrounding areas to try and find aid, to try and find relief and safety, and also the impact that this insurgency is having on the surrounding, whether it's provinces of Maputo or the nearest countries where these displaced people try and find refuge in.
The humanitarian crisis, as I've indicated to you, is Mozambique's biggest since the end of the civil war in 1992. You have most conservative statistics would indicate that nearly a million people are internally displaced. And they're internally displaced, but the level of hopelessness amongst those is appalling, is inhumane. Despite the efforts from the government, from domestic organizations and international organizations that have been trying to meet the needs of the IDPs, the reality is that the level of hopelessness among IDPs, as I've indicated, is brutal, is inhumane. People lack the basics, not only lack the basics, but the quality of governance towards these people. IDPs, they have rights according to domestic and international laws. So government and its partners is not meeting the basic requirements in both national and international laws assisting the people in such a situation. This is one. Number two is the number of people that have disappeared and those who have lost their lives. There are no accurate statistics as to how many lost their lives, as to how many have disappeared. But the reality is that the level of brutality against civilians, those who lost their life in such a tragic situation, those who have disappeared, there is no reliable mechanism to trace those people on the one hand. And on the other hand, there is no effort whatsoever to have access to those people. Listen, government has been using military force to target insurgents, and there have been reports from the army saying they have attacked this number of bases, they have killed these people, but they haven't been able to show one civilian that was able to recover from those situations. So also indicate that the level of use of force might have been disproportional in the sense that it might have killed so many other civilians that were caught in that side. So this tells you that Cabo Delgado might be at the moment the Africa's most tragic area where civilians find themselves hopeless. Those who are in the ranks of the violent extremists and those who lost their lives, no sense of governance in order to put a basic order. It's not there.
And there are concerns that the hardships faced by those internally displaced people kind of makes them vulnerable to radicalization by these extremist groups. How significant is this threat, and what measures can be put in place to mitigate it? Because when you are vulnerable and you're in that situation, you have this extremist group, they're promising what they're promising. They might have food, they might have shelter, they might have water. You could be an easy target, to become a recruit of some sort.
Indeed. There have been some speculations suggesting that recruitments also might take place within those who are forced to leave their homes. But we have to acknowledge that at the moment, the governance failure is such that it creates the conditions for that to happen, be it amongst those who are fled and now they are IDPs, be those who are out there hopeless, without any kind of support in the northern and towards the southern districts, where people suffer the daily hardships caused by the violent extremism. And despite the efforts from the government that has put in place a DIN, which is the Northern Agency for the integrated development of the northern region, not much is happening. Not much is happening. So the level of hopelessness is putting everyone as easy target in those areas to be recruited, and hence the difficulty in ending the violence there, because though government is and its partner is fighting the insurgents, but also on the other hand, we haven't been able to stop the recruitment patterns in the region because of what I have indicated as resulting of the governance failure.
I'm trying to find, something that might resemble, a silver lining in all of this conflict. Are there any promising initiatives or programs currently underway that, give you some kind of hope for positive change in the situation in Cabo Delgado, particularly when it comes to the internally displaced peoples?
Not much is happening in that front. When violence started, government responded militarily and used hard military equipment to respond, and even resorted to mercenary groups, the Wagner groups, and then the other South African military groups, and that did not help. That it might have exacerbated the radicalization, and those who were already radicalized might have entered into the war, into the violence activity because of how government responded. Now, government then invited international forces. They have the Rwandese there on the one hand, and until recently, they had Samim, which unfortunately left. But when you look at how government is responding to the situation, there is a military deployment. There is an attempt to improve the security sector governance, but not much has been able to be achieved there. But the reality is that not really, there is no coherent strategy aimed at addressing, number one, the root causes that, if they did not trigger the situation, they created the conducive conditions for the violence to take long time. This is one. Number two, there is nothing in the ground suggesting that government is moving in the right direction. My point is, you don't see a coherent strategy aimed at addressing the situation. Seeing Samim, the SADC troops departing Cabo Delgado, you know that this is a failure. It's a failure from Samim, but it's more importantly a failure from the government to make sure that they would have leveraged on the Rwandese and on the Samim to weaken the support base and the military capacity of the insurgents, and then to engage on a comprehensive and robust national dialogue that it targeted not only the violent extremists, but more importantly, an inclusive dialogue, taking into account the aspirations of local communities in those areas, and also the aspirations of the people in Cabo Delgado. Listen, from Cabo Delgado to Maputo, it's almost 2 hours and 20 minutes with a Boeing flight. That's such long distance. And Mozambique is one of the highly centralized governments, highly centralized. For something to happen in northern Cabo Delgado, it must be decided from Maputo. And there is no tradition of Maputo decentralizing anything. So, we can say so many things, but Mozambique's system of governance, it's conducive for conflicts because it's highly centralized. Local populations have no meaningful space to participate. Elections are fraudulent. They are not a constructive space for local groups to be empowered and to see space and mechanisms to meaningfully participate in governance. Plus the highly Maputicized, Maputo-centric, elitist extractivism of the resources, which leaves nothing for local populations. So this way or system of governance, if it is not creating, it is at least conducive for violence to continue.
While we're chatting, you and I, you were mentioning Samim a lot, and also just the SADC region and its response. We all know, what's currently happening in Mozambique right now is not a special case. We've seen it unfold on the continent numerous times. But does this finally put a stamp on the fact that the SADC bloc in itself as an organization and the African Union as an organization are in a lot of ways very, very toothless and ineffective when it comes to approaching the challenges faced by the continent and the people of the continent? Are they still organizations that we can look upon for answers and solutions to the many challenges that the continent faces?
You are right in that SADC is not there when many people are looking for solutions. But with that said, we need to be just, and this must be said. With all its constraints, with all barriers and difficulties, but SADC, it organized itself and it deployed for Mozambique. This is the very first time to see a SADC, which is weak an institution, but to organize itself and to mobilize its member states to deploy a military support to support Mozambique in its fight in northern Cabo Delgado. So I commend SADC for that. I commend Samim their commitment. And also, and I thank the sons and daughters of SADC that lost their life in that battle. They have done a lot. When they arrived in Cabo Delgado, the violent extremists were threatening capturing Pemba, the capital seat of Cabo Delgado. They have played a significant role in weakening violent extremism, not to march towards the capital seat of Pemba. They played a significant role. Now, remember, when SADC was deployed, they were at the level 6. And now they downgraded the operation to level 5. And level 5, it means a combination, military response and governance engagement. That should have been met from the Mozambique side in a more welcoming attitude to Samim, to engage different stakeholders towards a comprehensive and inclusive dialogue. That we did not see. I did not see a welcoming spirit from the Maputo government towards SADC. It became clear that Maputo government, that my president, Philippe Jacinto Nyusi, he preferred the Rwandese troops. He preferred to engage with Kigali instead of engaging constructively with Gaborone. And this, it has to be said here, clear and loud. The attitude from Maputo, it has contributed, unfortunately, to weaken our regional mechanisms of addressing violent extremism. And it risks the Cabo Delgado situation to expand to the capitals of the region because Maputo did not open its doors for SADC to fully implement its strategy. And today, SADC has left Mozambique. We have only the Rwandese troop. And the terms of engagement of Rwandese troops, no one knows. They are not transparent. So when you have that type of thing, you clearly see that if the insurgency is there because of Maputo-centric bad governance in the management of the resources, you can also say without fear of mistake that the continuation of the conflict, it's also has something to do with how Maputo failed to address the willingness of SADC to contribute in ending violence in northern Cabo Delgado.
And just lastly, before I let you go, anything else that the people of the continent, the people of the region might need to look out for, as this insurgency and instability in Cabo Delgado continues to happen? Are there any, interesting developments? Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Indeed. Listen, my president, he can prefer to bring Kigali, to bring Rwanda. That is presidency to presidency. But Mozambique is part of SADC. And the people of SADC, they have to come together in solidarity to support each other in fighting violent extremism. Only at that level, in a well-organized, coordinated efforts of solidarity, we can, as we have done in the past, we can strengthen ourselves, the mechanisms of resilience to help each other in fighting that. Because, most of these governments, they come to power in a fraudulent manner. If the mechanisms for election in a country are fraudulent, they generate fraudulent governments. And those governments, they tend to take fraudulent decisions. And with that happening, we need solidarity at the community, at the country level, as we have done when we are fighting apartheid. So we need to come together as a SADC, as a bloc, as a community of people to help each other, to help Mozambique in fighting violent extremism.
All right. I think that's where we're going to leave it. Professor Adriano Nuvunga, Director of the Center for Democracy and Development. Adios and obrigado for giving us all of the insights coming out of Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. I'm sure as the situation unfolds, we'll be keeping in contact with you so that we get your opinion. But we're going to leave it here for now. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and there you have it. Really, really concerning news coming out of Mozambique. It doesn't seem like there's any solid answer, any kind of solution, any permeable solution that can be inflicted by the government of Maputo. I mean, preferring the Rwandese military instead of the SADC bloc to get involved in this situation, I think is one thing that's really, really concerning for me. But I think, we're going to be keeping up with Adriano, but we're going to leave it there for now. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time. Stay warm this afternoon. Johannesburg is chilly, and keep tuning in for more current affairs and discussions right here on Salam Media. My name is Salalo Makwidiri, signing off. Have a great day. Goodbye.